What's happening, guys? It's a damn hot weekend and I'm in the garage, so I'm going to be sweating buckets today. Anyway, quick vlog today just about the track car. So I took it out on its first track evening session over at Brands Hatch, which is just down the road from me, and the car was brilliant whilst it was performing. So I say whilst it was performing. So the first half an hour I went out, the car was driving brilliant. Stopping well, gripping well, driving really well. Considering this car's been off the road for 8 years, I was really impressed and I was really pleased, obviously, with all the work I've done. However, we get to about 50 minutes in and my mate Jimbo's driving the car, and all of a sudden I'm on the phone and I've seen him coming into the pits with bellows of smoke and steam coming out of the bonnet. So naturally I'm panicking, thinking, oh shit, you know, after all that work, it's on fire. When you see a marshal running towards your pit garage with a fire extinguisher, you know, it's not good. Anyway, it turned out it wasn't as bad as I first thought. So marshal comes in, lift the bonnet up just in case it's on fire, and it wasn't. It was actually a coolant explosion, basically. So I think what's happened is I think I've had a fouled thermostat or a sticking thermostat. That's then caused the car to overheat. And my mate Jimbo said when he was coming down just after Druids at Brands through the hairpin, he said all of a sudden the temperature spiked right up and the car started misfiring. So, you know, at first I was thinking, oh shit, you know, it's misfiring, the engine's cooked, you know. But then I sort of thought the car's got a Jackson Racing cold air intake, and I think what's happened is the coolant that is coming out, wherever it's leaked from, I think it's been spluttering into the cold air intake, straight into the intake manifold, and then obviously causing it to misfire. So that's what I think it is. I think it's a stuck thermostat. I'm hoping it's a stuck thermostat. And also, whilst there, the car had a terrible idle as well. Now, I originally put this down to the previous owner had put a lightweight flywheel on the car, so not being able to match the revs, I was thinking that's why it's cutting out. However, once getting the car home, because it just kept cutting out, it was really pissing me off. When I got the car home and had a real good look under the engine bay, I actually noticed that the throttle body was completely missing a part. I'll show you what I'm talking about. Let me just lift up the bonnet. Right, I'll flip you around and I'll show you what I'm talking about. Right, so here's the Jackson Racing intake. Now I think what happened was, this is a new rad cap I've put on here as well. The old rad cap, it could either be a stuck thermostat or it could be the rad cap that's failed and that the coolant was all coming out the top here. I didn't actually lose loads of coolant, so I think it was more so steam. And under pressure, the top rad hose, everything up here really hot, and it's getting really hot when I first start the car up. So that's making me think that this thermostat is stuck and it's no good. But anyway, I think what's happened is the coolant spraying out of here has got sucked straight into this intake, straight down and into the throttle body, into the intake manifold, causing the misfiring. So I'm not too concerned at the minute about the misfiring. Anyway, in terms of the throttle body, what I was just talking about, and the revs. Now, on your throttle body, you've got this little dash pot, and I noticed on the throttle body that I've taken off, it was missing. And basically, your throttle sort of rests on that, which obviously alters inside on the butterfly valve, the air getting in, etc. So I'm thinking my shit idle was probably down to the fact that that was missing, and I was probably getting unmetered air going into the intake, and the ECU doesn't know what's gone in and what hasn't, so it's trying to keep the car running, so it's going up and down, up and down, up and down. Usually with an idle like that, it's usually an adjustment that you need to do on the idle screw, on the screw up there, to adjust it by bridging a connection in your diagnostic box over there between ground and 10, and then setting your revs to 850. But I'd played around with this for absolutely ages, couldn't get it to idle right. But then I couldn't believe that I'd actually missed the fact that the other throttle body was completely missing that. So the one that I took off, I'll show you. So here's the one that I took off. and as you can see, it's completely missing. That's where that screw is there, is basically where that dash pot would sit on top of. So that, I believe, is why I had a shit idle. So I'm hoping that replacing it is going to fix the issue. Now, I put this is a new replacement one, a second-hand one, that I knew was okay. I fit this on the other day, but I never had a throttle body gasket, so now I've fit it without the gasket. It's making a bit of a whistling noise, so I need to actually remove it and refit it again, clean it up, put a new gasket on it, which I've ordered and got, a genuine Mazda gasket, and then we'll get it fitted back up. Hopefully that then will sort that issue right out and the idle will be sorted. Whilst I'm doing that, the thermostat sits behind here in the thermostat housing. So that's going to be a case of undoing the 2 bolts on that, taking the thermostat out, and then fitting a new gasket, new thermostat, bolting it back up with a little bit of Hylamar blue sealant on it as well, just for good measure. Obviously, like I say, I've just bought a brand new rad cap as well. So I'm hoping that if I fit that, I'll drain the coolant out, put new coolant in it as well, so it's got a nice fresh set of coolant in the car as well. And then hopefully, fingers crossed, it'll be good to go and I'll be able to get it back out on track again. But until then, we need to investigate. So stick around if you want to watch the video. It's just a bit of a tinkering video, really, bit of a vlog, just to sort of show you what I'm up to. We'll get this changed out and I can show you how to do that. Not a very big job. And like I say, we'll take this apart as well and drain the coolant out. So stick around if you want to see how it's done. Right, so I'm going to kick off with the throttle body first. So just to try and take you in and show you. So to get this off, you've got 12mm nuts. There's one there, and then you've got one on the underside as well, just under the pipe there. You need to undo all 4 of them. You're going to need to disconnect your throttle cable linkage. So on the side here, you're going to have to take that off by pulling it forward to loosen it. And then as you can see where my little finger is there, that's where the linkage, where the cable goes in, just there. So you're just going to pop that out. And then this tube, this pipe, hose, disconnect that there. And then you've got one underneath that goes to the throttle body from up here, one of the coolant lines here goes to the bottom of the idle speed control valve. And then you've got another one just on the side down there. So we'll undo them, get them off, and we're also going to disconnect the throttle position sensor as well. That's held on with a little wire clip that runs around the edge. So a little flat screwdriver just to ping that up and take it off and keep it, because you need it to refit it. So right, let's get this throttle body off and get cracking. So as I said, disconnect your throttle cable, so push that forward and then your cable literally will just pop out the hole. You can let that go and just flip that out of the way somewhere. Just out of the way, easy as that. Next thing I'm going to do is undo these coolant lines. What I would suggest doing is getting a bolt and putting it in the end. I mean, I'm going to be draining the coolant out of this anyway, so it doesn't really matter. But that's what you would do, stick a bolt in it if you're not going to be draining the coolant. I am, so I'm going to drain the coolant out just literally by releasing the bottom hose and drain that out, and then we'll get back to it. Right, so I'm under the car. There's the radiator, and I'm going to drain the coolant rather than undoing this nut on the rad and risking damaging it or causing further leaks. Easier way of doing it, just undo the bottom rad hose, get that out of the way and drain the coolant out. So that's what I'm going to do now. Get a bucket or whatever nearby. There she goes. Bit of spillage like you always get. You can considering I changed this coolant not long before running the car, it's still coming out with rust traces, so it needs another good flush through, which I'll do. Right, so with the coolant drained, I'm going to start taking off some of the other bits that need to be done. It looks like I might have to take the airbox lid off so that I can get to the thermostat. What a ball ache. Okay, so I've got to take the Jackson Racing lid off. So that's going to be the next job. And we'll take off the filter. So you can see there what the Jackson Racing air filter looks like now that I've took the lid off of it. Bit of dirt in now. So I'm having to get this out of the way because one of the bolts for the thermostat is just underneath there, so a bit of a pain, but I've got to get it out of the way. So let's get that moved. The thermostat housing bolts are a 12. I'm going to take them out. Okay, that's one out. I'd recommend as well unplugging the little temperature sensor on top of the thermostat housing as well, just because you don't want to break the wiring. Just get it out of the way. I'm just loosening up the hose in so I can slip it off of the intake. A bit like this hose will come off nice and easy. Which it has. And then we can move that out of the way. That's better. Let's get that off. That will just drop down there and sit nicely in place out of the way for when we change this. A bit more coolant come out then. Okay, so we'll take off the hose on the side of the throttle body, start working on that. I'm just loosening off the clip, just pull that off. Sometimes these can be a nightmare to get off, where they sort of weld themselves on, particularly if you're taking off the standard hoses. I'm taking off the aftermarket ones, it's not as bad because I've had these off already. Oh, that's it, that's that one off. And then, as I said, underneath here you've got the other line to the idle speed control valve, so you need to undo that hose as well and remove that. Again, loosen that right off. So you're in a position to pull that hose off. And like I say, again, this is a coolant one, so if you're not draining the system down, then I would recommend plugging this line up, or you can just tuck it up behind like I've just done there. So that's that one. As I said, you've got the coolant line on the other side that comes down, and we've got to take off the throttle position sensor. So I'll do that next, get a little flathead screwdriver. And you'll see hopefully in the video how I take it off. So on the top there, where you've got the wire, you're going to have to prise it off like that, and then make sure you hold on to it. There's a little clip. Put that somewhere safe. And then the throttle position sensor plug, you can just unplug it and put that out of the way for a minute. Underneath the throttle body, there's another plug as well, which I'll bring you in to show. So, with the throttle body position sensor undone, there's another one just below it. That's simply just push the tab in and pull it off, like so. There you go, just pull that off of there. Again, that can stay out of the way. And hopefully now you might be able to see underneath the throttle body, there's the 2 bolts at the top. And you've got a 12 just below the throttle position sensor just down there. And the other one's obviously on the other side. So we're going to undo them bolts, undo these Jubilee clips to loosen that off. Then we can pull the intake off and get the throttle body off. Let's get it done. Loosen them off just so it allows me to pull that off. There we go, so that intake can come out of the way now. I'll just leave that tucked out of the way. Now you've got your bolts, 12s there. Let's get them undone. And also you've got the coolant line on it. I'll undo that once I pop the throttle body off, it'll just make it easier. Loosen off the bolts, that one I'm going to have to use a spanner on. So the bottom 2 are actually bolts, and the top 2 at there are just nuts that go on threads. Okay, so there's one of the bottom ones. Second bottom one. And the top ones I have to crack with a spanner, just because I can't get a socket in now. So they won't be too tight. Undo the nuts. It's already loose. Second nut. And now the throttle body will lift away, but I have also got a coolant line still attached, which I'll show you. So pull that off. And then, as I said, underneath, just there, there's the other coolant line for the idle speed control valve on the top. So just undo that as well. Get it slid up. be able to pull off that hose off the throttle body. There we go, and there she is. There's the throttle body free. Okay, so like I said, that's what was missing on the other one. Give you a look behind. Okay, so I need to clear off all this old gasket off the back, so just use some WD-40 or similar, brake cleaner WD-40. Get that off so it's nice and smooth, and then we can fit the new gasket on, and then we won't get no more whistling noises. So when you're cleaning the throttle body up, my choice is a scraper, metal scraper, sharp. You need to be very careful on here. You don't want to be scoring it, so just take your time, spray WD-40 on it, and when you scrape it, you'll see it gets underneath and it will lift the old gasket up. Yeah, so basically just go around the whole thing, scrape it up, clean it up, so we're ready to fit the nice new gasket. If you need to buy a new throttle body gasket for your Mark 1 1.6, here's the part number, and this is for genuine Mazda. Alright, with gaskets and that, I don't mess around with aftermarket parts, I always fit genuine Mazda. Okay, and that's it in there. It's literally just a wafer thin, if you can see it, hopefully. It's a wafer thin gasket. So that will go on there once it's all cleaned up. And as I said, I've bought a thermostat as well, a gasket for the thermostat. And then there's a part number there. Bought this from a company in the UK, well, they're actually, I believe, up in Scotland, AutoLink. Check out AutoLink, they're a really good company for any MX5 parts that you need. Okay, reasonably priced, they post out really, really quickly. Always had a top-notch service from them, so highly recommend them. Right, I'm going to clean this up. Once I'm cleaned up, I'll get the new gasket out and I'll come back to you. Right, so here's the throttle body, cleaned up. I blew it through with my airline as well, just to make sure any shit and crap was out of it. So that's now ready for the new gasket. So I'm just going to grab that. So there's the new gasket, fresh out of the packet. It's just a matter of fitting that onto there, and then we can fit it back onto the car. So let's have a look at this, see if we get it lined up. So just like that. The new gasket, I'll just show you, lines up perfectly. So that's ready to be bolted back on the car. All I'm going to do quickly, don't need to show you how to do that, but I'm just going to clean up the throttle body just around where it mates against the inlet manifold. It's fairly clean already, but I'll just give it a wipe over just to make sure. So I think what I'll do before fitting it is just hook back up this coolant line, just as it will be easier than trying to do it when the throttle body's actually on. So make sure it's nice and tight. So take your gasket, get it lined up. And push it right back. And then you can take, just make sure that gasket's okay, not slipped. All looks good. Then you can get a couple of your bolts back in on the throttle body. So I'll put a nut up the top to hold it, and then I'll do one at the bottom as well in opposite directions. One at the top. Take one of your long bolts for the bottom and just get our 12mm. Just doing it by hand at the moment just to snug it up. Okay, so again, the other bottom one, get that in position. Again, just do it by hand. And again, you'll have to use the spanner on the top one there because of the mushroom pot being in the way. You haven't got to go mad with these, tighten them up just so that they're tight and biting. That hopefully will be a nice airtight seal. And then basically it's the reverse now of just hooking the hoses back up and getting everything connected back up the way we did it when we removed it. So first thing I'm going to do is go around the back. I'm going to connect up the coolant hose just on the back. So I'll bring you in just so you can actually see it. So on the side, here's the hose I'm talking about, just down here. So that goes onto there. And then we can hook up our cable back in position for the throttle. That one there is just going to slip back on like that. And get our Jubilee clip in a position where, again, we can get to it if we need to. So get that like that. Okay, so that's that done. So the throttle cable, that can go back on now. Hopefully you'll see, awkward to position here, but hopefully you'll see how that goes. So that comes around, you hold that around, and the cable goes through the slot, through the hole, like so, and then it feeds back onto as so. That's now fitted back on. Okay, easy as that. Now we can start doing back up some of the electrical plugs, etc. So that bottom one there, as I said before, slips onto this one there, like so. Just pushes on. And then we've got the throttle position sensor on the top there. So we can take our cable for that. And as I said before, the little clip that goes on it. So you need to take that again. And it goes, you can see, it goes that way round. To feed that back on. Like so. That just clicks in as easy, that just holds that plug on so it can't go anywhere. So that's all the electrical connectors back on. And then we can fit the rest of the throttle body back on when I put the tubing back on for the thermostat, but we're going to do the thermostat next. So we can take out the other 12mm. And let's undo this side. Doesn't look like these have been out in a long time, so I imagine this thermostat's not been changed for quite a while. So it gives me even more suspicion to the fact of it being that's fouled and has caused the overheating issue. So let's get this off. So there's the thermostat housing, old gasket, that's not been off in a long while. And as you can see there's the old thermostat. So we'll take that off now. They simply just pull out. It might be a bit stuck, so I might have to get a screwdriver to lever it out. Yeah, it's pretty stuck. So a flathead screwdriver. Take the screwdriver, there we go. And there is the thermostat, which I don't know how old it is, but I'm guessing it's pretty old looking at it. So I may well test that, putting it in some boiling water just to see if it does anything. But my guess is it's I mean, the spring, it don't even feel like it's got any give in it. Doesn't feel like it's going to move. But we'll give it a go, see what happens. I'll put it in some boiling water, see if it confirms my faults. But that's the stat out. We can clean up the top of the housing. We can clean up the top here, ready for the new gasket to go on. Get rid of these remnants of old gasket. Can flush the system through. Try and get out some of that water that's in there that's dirty. And get the new stat in. Right, so I brought the thermostat inside, boiling the kettle up. We're going to pour it on just to see if anything happens, if it moves or opens. So we'll give that a go. Right, so the kettle's just about boiled. I'm going to submerge this in the boiling water and we'll have a look to see if anything moves. Let's give it a go. So at the minute, nothing at all. It's boiling water, it's not moved. Give it a couple of seconds more. I would say that's a stuck thermostat, knackered. It should move, should open. It's boiling water, so it's supposed to open at either 82 degrees or 88. Well, I think we may have found the culprit for the overheating. Stuck thermostat. Right, so I'm just gonna give it a bit of a clean up around the gasket sealing area on the thermostat housing. Again, I'm just using my scraper, just very lightly. You don't want to damage the thermostat housing, but I want to clean it up as best I can so you get a nice flat mating surface for the new gasket that we're going to fit. I'll put a bit of tissue paper just into the top just to catch any crap, stop it going into the any crap getting into the thermostat housing. As you can see, there's quite a bit of old gasket coming away. I'm just going to clean the underside of the throttle body housing, take this old gasket off, and then I'll use my scraper just to scrape around there. So we'll get that cleaned up now. Right, so something else you want to do as well is flush your radiator through and flush the engine through with some nice clean water. So I'm just flushing that through, get all the rusty water come out. See if I can take you under. As you can see there, that's going to get rid of all that. And then I'll also run the hose just through the thermostat as well. Just get the water running out clear before we think about putting any new coolant in. Right, okay, so I've flushed the system through with clean water, through the thermostat, through the radiator, all coming out nice and clean. I've cleaned up the top of the thermostat housing, so that's ready to go back on. And I've also cleaned up around the top of the thermostat housing here as well. So again, that's all ready to have its new gasket now, which is just here, so that when it goes on will just lay over the top like so. But what I'm going to do as well is a very thin smear on the back of the gasket and on the top there with some of this, with some Hylamar blue. This is basically just oil and waterproof sealant, one that is flexible so it doesn't sort of go hard. So we're going to use that just as a bit of extra precaution. Get the new gasket and thermostat dropped in, and then we can do up the bolts. And all I'm going to do is put some of the Hylamar on the gasket. What this will also do is it will just aid and help so that it doesn't slip out of position when you're doing it up. So it just helps in terms of that as well. So this stuff's also really good if you're doing a water pump. If you're doing the water pump on the car, a little bit of this on the back of the water pump gasket will help as well. As I say, it will just help keep it in place. It's a little bit sticky. And hopefully this will help also prevent any leaks. So that will go on like that. I'm just going to drop the thermostat in. So there's the new thermostat. I'm going to take the gasket over the top. Okay, and as I said, I'm just going to put a very thin smear of it around the top of the gasket as well. So now you're going to take your top thermostat cover, place it into position, like so. And then you're going to take your 12mm bolts. I'm going to give these a quick clean up because I've just looked and they're pretty messy, so I'm just going to give them a quick wire brush. So with them bolts cleaned up a bit better, I'm also going to use a little bit of copper grease just on the threads of the bolts, because nice and preventative, so next time when you undo them, they're going to undo a lot easier. Always good when you've got things apart to think about the next job if you've got to do it, or the next person that's working on the car. Don't need a lot of this, just a little bit. Okay, this will just help. And get that in by hand, just so you don't cross thread anything. Right, so we're going to do these two bolts up, and we're going to torque them down to the correct spec, hopefully again, so you're not going to get any leaks. And the spec you want to tighten these down to is 19 foot-pounds. Okay, so get them tightened down using your torque wrench. I won't tighten it completely on one side, I'll do a bit at a time on each side to spread the load. Do a bit at a time, go back to each one until you hear the torque wrench click. And now I'll go and tighten. So that's 19 on that side, and that's 19 on that side. So that is torqued to the correct spec now. Any of the gunk that comes out, just smear your finger around, give it a wipe. But that's the thermostat fitted. Nice new gasket. So again, if you need the thermostat part number, what I used, got it from AutoLink. There's the part number. This isn't a genuine Mazda one, this is a Japanese one. This is what AutoLink sell. Dependent upon what year MX5 you've got, you may need a different one. There's two, so there's one at 82 degrees, I think it is, and the other's 88 degrees. Okay, we're on the home stretch. So now it's a case of, now that's done up, go back to the throttle body now and start connecting everything back up. Then we can put fresh coolant in the system, bleed it through, and with a bit of luck, we'll be good to go. This is the clip for the top of the thermal switch. Now we can get this back on. So you're going to want to So while that air box is out, I'm just going to take the filter out, give it a hoover. Good time to check if you've got any crap in your air box. This is pretty clean. I only sorted this out a little while ago, so. Okay, so filter can go back in. Right, so the airbox is back on. All the last things left to do is just put the hose back onto the radiator. So we've got the top hose and thermostat. Right, I think we're done. All that's left to do is fill it up with some coolant and then we'll bleed the system through. Give you a quick look. Thermostat housing, throttle body. Airbox back on. Now we've just got to fill it up and bleed the system. So when you're bleeding the MX5, you want to get the car at the front jacked up high like I have here. You need it up high and it will help with bleeding out any air in the system. Because what we're going to have to do is pour the coolant in, and then we're going to need to run the engine for a little bit just to cycle the coolant through, squeezing the top and bottom hoses. So you've got your top hose here, and then when you come around the back, you've got hose there, and just, you know, at the one underneath on the rad as well, you know, just make sure you just sort of give them a intermittent squeeze, just try and get any air out of the system. And then after probably about 20 minutes, 15-20 minutes of the car running, hopefully any air would have gone. You'll see little bubbles coming up and a little bit of overspill coming out of the filler neck of the rad, and then hopefully we're good to go. We can turn the engine off, put the rad cap on, and job's done. So in terms of coolant, this is a 1990 Mark 1. I'm going to be using Commer's Super Cold Master Concentrate. Alright, you need to make sure you use the right coolant, obviously, for your car. These having a alley head and cast iron block, you don't want to mix coolants. So I'm going to use that. That's a concentrate, and what I'm also using with it, not tap water, we're going to use battery top-up water. That's just going to help in terms of not getting any lime scale and furring up inside your rad, etc. So we're going to mix those together to make up the coolant to go in. So probably around about 50-50 of each, maybe just a little bit more water. Yeah, I'll get that mixed up and get it added in. Right, so I've mixed up coolant, and now I'm just going to add it. Because when I was underneath, I noticed another problem. And that problem is a broken drop link. So I'll take you in and show you. As you can see, the drop link, there you go, has failed. So whether that was when I was hooning around on track, but it's completely sheared off. So it looks like the rubber insert is what's failed. So I need to unbolt that up there, unbolt the bottom, and then hopefully fit replacements. I had some spares in my parts, so I'll stick them on. I think they're front ones and not rears. I'll soon find out. So that's the next job. There's the offending article, bush missing out of it. I'll get the top one undone. There we go, nice new drop link fitted in place of that. So lucky I had the car jacked up and see that, because I do plan on putting the car in for an MOT as well, so glad that's fixed. Right, so I'm going to start the car up, bleed it through, and hopefully the throttle body's not going to be whistling anymore as well. Hopefully get that idle down, and hopefully it's not bouncing all over the place, but we'll see. So that's it for this video, guys. It was only a quick one, just a bit of tinkering on the track car today. Hopefully I've now sorted out that idle issue, and with a bit of luck the car's no longer going to overheat. As you see in the video, I think it definitely was the thermostat that caused the issue, because pouring boiling water over it, it still didn't open up. So I think it got stuck, and that's what led to my problems out on the track. So now it's done. Hopefully I can get it back out on track fairly soon, put it under a bit of pressure, you know, give it some around the track, and hopefully the cooling system will hold up this time and I'll get a bit longer out on the track. So hope you enjoyed that. Give us a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel if you want to see more Mazda content. I've got some upcoming videos soon on my CX5. I need to change the lower control arms on that. So a bit different from the MX5s, but again, it's a Mazda. So if you want to check that out, it'll be uploaded in a couple of weeks' time, hopefully. So see you soon, guys. Take it easy.